Love it.
Hello to our YouTube, UGAsports.com audience. I'm Dane Young with Roddy Nabolsi and Brent Rollins, all from UGAsports.com. Brent also works with Pro Football Focus. College football playoff expansion. We are reacting to that breaking news of the College Football Playoff Committee, at least recommending that it be moved to 12 teams, 6 conference champions, 6 after those 6, it will be the 6 highest ranked teams. So you're talking a total of 12, 4 buys for the top 4 teams. Roddy, I'll start with you as you're walking through somewhere in Clark County. Just tell me your initial thoughts because it feels like a long time coming.
No, I'm very excited about this. I've been very pro playoffs for a long time, mainly because I'll tell you, I'm just jaded because I cover the University of Georgia. They've always been so close on the outside looking in, number 5 or number 3. I mean, I remember when Georgia got hosed by I guess it was BCS, and they're like, you didn't win your conference championship, therefore you can't be in the playoffs. And I think or you can't be in the bowl games, whatever. And they took it out on Fort Hawaii. And then I guess it was the following year. It's like, oh, hey, Alabama, that doesn't matter. Yeah, we screwed Georgia over, but you don't have to win your championship. Jump on in there. And Alabama wins the title. So to me, and you guys can speak to the history that's better. It just feels like college football is getting stagnant. You expect the playoffs to be Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, maybe another SEC team. If you're Mississippi, let's say you're Kansas, Missouri, Mississippi State, Penn State, Nebraska, anybody else, do you really think you have a shot? Because you can't lose more than one game. And maybe if you lose 2 games, you don't deserve to be in there. But still, you can lose games in basketball and the season still matters. If you lose a game in football, you're kind of done because that even if Alabama loses one game, they're in. Same with Ohio State. So to me, I know people say, well, this takes down the value of the regular season. Like, hell no, it keeps the season going. You have a loss, hey, maybe we can still make number 8. So I'm all for it. To me, the more participation you have, the better the sport. And the sport's going to need it because this NIL thing, people are happy for the players, but when they see all the kids transferring and they see some of these deals and they feel more and more like professional players, guys who are pushing themselves and not the team or the school like they folks are used to. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but people have that idea that, you play for the logo on the side of your helmet, not for the name on the back of your jersey. And some of the old folks, older people will be like, well, this just doesn't have the same feel. This will be a shot of excitement directed right into college football. I think you have a lot more buy-in from fans this way.
Brent, what was your just gut reaction to the news as it broke?
Actually, very similar. And I think I tweeted this a couple of days ago, but I was a senior in high school in 1999 and wrote a paper, a really big paper, by the way, like senior English. Like I was taking a English 101 through Marshall. And this was a massive paper on a 16-team playoff, home games for a couple rounds. You keep the bowls during the weeks. These games occur on Friday and Saturday. That was in 1999. So
wow,
we're 22 years later, and
your thesis can vote now.
Still not there. I mean it's been that way. I mean, how long? Like, think about Coach Donna now. Which thoughts and prayers always right now to Coach Donna. But think about him going through the playoffs in the early 90s at Marshall and winning championships and all those 1AA and FCS programs that have done this for years. It seems like, and plus once they saw how well the 4 did, it was inevitable. Now it does say, like in the statement, I was reading it, it said proposal was made and this is the first step that will not conclude before this fall. So this season is normal,
right?
Or as we know it. But after that, it might be open season.
Yeah, it sounds like 2023 is the earliest possible year that this will happen. And if you have to assume that TV partners have anything to say about it, I would say that's a pretty good bet to make, even though I guess we don't have that officially at this point. However, what I will say is I think this news comes 20 years too late. And when the Auburn team that went undefeated and did not have a chance to play for a national championship.
Was that 04? Cadillac Williams,
Yeah,
Ronnie Brown, Jason Campbell.
If you go undefeated in the SEC, you should play for the national title. And obviously, in a 4-team playoff, they would have. But what I'm saying is the combination of that and the combination of group of 5 teams, I think need to have an avenue to at least get in the dance to have a shot. I think it will be so helpful for the sport, for the Cincinnatis and UCFs, Georgia Southerns if they get there, Appalachian State. We've seen Boise State do it before. I just think it's going to create a lot of intrigue, and you want to see all the gadget plays and the funky stuff like the classic Boise State Oklahoma game. I think this is how you get that almost on an annual basis.
Yeah, what do those teams do? They recruit and develop. They have to.
Yep.
So you've developed this whole group over 3-4 years, and you got this great group. Well, we can't really qualify for the playoff. Now you have that as a possibility.
No, I agree 100%. It will help them in their recruiting. It's going to help them in their raising money for facilities. It's going to help them attract coaches. So you're going to get a little more parity. And again, I'm not trying to – Georgia is one of the wealthy. When we talk about rich getting richer, I thought that the article Jason Butt wrote, the column he wrote yesterday about, on paper, this has to be one of the best Georgia rosters of all time. And Georgia's got the resources to do that. Do you have a $7 million head coach? You have an $80 million facility that you just built. You spent $60 million on the end zone there. Teams come to your house and play to get $1 million payout to go back and, do for just $1 million. Yeah, you don't have to do the return trip. I'm not saying that I'm not trying to come across as I'm against Georgia doing well here, but it's when all the potential is loaded into just 5-6 teams, because Georgia is going to be one of those perennial powerhouses. This allows some of the, like you said, those G5 teams to get into it. And I know no one wants to watch Alabama blow the doors off of Liberty, but at the same time, if 5 has to play 12, so the number 5 team has to take on the number 12 team, there's a chance for the number 12 to get in there. I'm all for it. And if the number 5 team can't beat the number 12 team, you don't deserve to be in it. So you lose, you're out. So a playoff win for a number 11 or a number 10, that gives you the ability to go to your boosters, go to your donors and say, look, we won in the first round of the playoffs. And all of a sudden, now they're expanding their facilities. They're signing better TV deals. They're getting better endorsements.
Keeping their coach.
Endorsements more, but they're for coach. So I'm just saying I know there's a lot of people who don't like the idea that they were maybe okay going to 8, but if you know that you're going to, that was always the knock against the playoffs. If you go to 4, you're going to go to 8, you're going to go to 12 and 16. And of course, everyone always took it to that straw man of, well, it'll be 64 teams. Bullshit. 12 is as far as they'll ever go, in my opinion, because past that, now you're adding too many weeks to it. You're adding too many games. Nobody wants to see the 13th through 16th teams get on there. So this to me was a reward for the first 4. There's a bonus for 5 through 8, and 9 through 12, they get in. So to me, this cuts down a lot of complaining. It gets the entire nation involved. I mean, look at how many people are watching Atlanta Hawks basketball that didn't watch it all year. Playoffs matter.
The other thing I think it does is it gives more importance to the conference championships, which, let's be honest, because of things like Clemson and the ACC, a lot of those championship games have just felt somewhat irrelevant for quite a few years.
Well, we have people saying, why play it? It's only going to hurt your chances.
In the SEC, you've had it where, this team would have made the playoff, but they had to go to Atlanta.
Yep.
And now you think that game's fighting. That's a de facto bye. Like you're fighting, that game's always going to be fighting for a bye for the most part, based on past history.
Or it's also a play-in, guys. Hi, Jason. What's your gut reaction to the college football playoff expansion?
Hey, a guy with some intelligence. That's fantastic. Let's go, Jason.
Well, I love it. I think I've been ever since I was a kid. I've been waiting for a pretty big expanded playoff field. So I think it's great for the game. I don't buy the whole the regular season doesn't matter. Yeah, the regular season matters. It's just you're including more teams in the postseason. Nobody's going to want their team to lose to a rival. But I think what it does is having an expanded playoff field, it does account for those unforeseen circumstances. It does account for injuries. It allows for that 1 or 2 game mishap to be overcome, especially when you're dealing with a conference like the SEC where your third, fourth best team might be better than a Notre Dame that would otherwise get into a 14 field, or worse, when it was only 2 teams and Notre Dame got in when they played Alabama after Georgia and Alabama basically played the national championship game. Georgia was still a better team than Notre Dame, but then Notre Dame got to play for a national championship. Those are the reasons why an expanded field makes sense and always has made sense. I think 12's great. I mean, 12's more than I thought they would ever go, especially starting at 4. I figured it'd go to 6, 8, and just be this long, drawn-out process. I think 12 is fantastic. I think it's a really good number. And honestly, it leads to greater expansion. After that, you can go to 16, 24, ultimately in the long run, kind of like the FCS.
With Georgia specifically, I think fans should be incredibly excited about this because I think for where Georgia is as a program, and Roddy was just referring to the piece that you wrote, Jason, about the talent on Georgia's roster and how it's, among the best in history. You could argue that it is the best in Georgia history. I guess we'll find that out. Georgia is almost guaranteed to be in a 12-team playoff every year because that's saying either they won the conference or take out the conference champions that would be above them in rankings, and then are they among the best 6 teams in that? And so to me, I think Georgia, with the talent that it has and for the upcoming year, the schedule that it has, I mean, if you don't make the playoffs, some heads are going to roll somewhere. I'll put it that way with the talent on a team like this. And I know that's not for the upcoming season, but I'm saying if you're projecting forward, I think this is a really good day for Georgia because the opportunities are just increased should you get to Atlanta and not win that game.
I agree 100%. And I think back to some of the close calls that Georgia's had, that was my initial point. It's like, hey, I've covered a team that has been snake bit, that has had one injury or one penalty, that just kills you, and you're like, I always think back to, Shockley getting injured before playing Florida, some of these other situations where you lost the one game and then you were out. And how about every pundit who thinks that they're so damn bright, thinks they're so original when they go on Twitter, they go on their blog or whatever, and they complain about there's too many bowl games. These bowl games don't mean anything. Well, yeah, okay, I get that the Weed Eater Bowl may not mean anything. But when you've got, what is it going to be 3? How many rounds is this now? Get the
well, it's really 4 with a play-in round. It's play-in round, then 8 for 2.
So 4 rounds. So 3 rounds with the play-in, like you said.
Yeah,
that's weeks and weeks and weeks of exciting football.
Well, here's going to be the interesting thing too.
And they move it back. Say we moved everything back to week 0 to get them started earlier, so you're not playing so far into January. That again, to me, this is a shot in the arm for a sport where a lot of people are just getting very jaded. I'm not saying that just because it's been talked about in the event. I'm looking nationwide, and people are saying, "Look, college football is the same 5 teams. That's boring, and it'll still be the same 5 teams probably winning it." But at least you'll be able, if you're Wisconsin, you're watching your team play, and it doesn't matter that you lost to Penn State earlier in the year because you're still in the damn playoffs.
That's the point I wanted to make, Roddy. I want to look at the NBA and the expansion that it's had with its playoffs and the play-in tournament in the last 2 seasons. It's exciting for that weekend, but I would say every single time that I've seen it, that team gets beat in 5 or 6 games that following series because, talent wins out. And so if you didn't have the most talent in the regular season, more than likely, you're not going to just find talent somewhere near the end. And you can go on a run and find that happens. It'll be rare. But for the most part, it's still going to be the Alabama, Clemson, Georgia's, LSU's, Ohio State's, Oklahoma's of the world. However, here's the interesting caveat. Let's say you're a team like Alabama. You've gone undefeated in the regular season. You're in the SEC championship game. It's one of those wonky years that Missouri snuck in there late in Rick's tenure. Do you think about just kind of chilling out and letting Missouri win, knowing that's going to make your playoff road a little easier, not having to play someone else that didn't get in? I'm just saying.
Yeah. Saban's going to call the dogs off. No, but you funny. You said that, and I was thinking about the when you mentioned the championship game carrying that much more vigor. So you can have one team that has to win to get into the playoffs. Another team that might want to rest a little bit. We also see that in the NBA. We also see that in some of these situations where towards the end of the regular season, the
Week
teams
17 in the NFL.
Yeah, the NFL's like that.
pull the starters. Yeah. But
I don't
to me,
see that as a bad thing, though. I don't think that's necessarily bad. It's a reward if you've had a good season. The ultimate prize is you want to get championships.
And if that were to happen, the team would still have won their division, right? So then all of a sudden, how did Georgia Tech make it to the SEC championship game? I'm trying to think how the divisions are aligned in the SEC, and it's all wonky because Clemson might as well be in both of them. But you know, Miami, how did Miami make it there with the talent that it has? And then all of a sudden, Clemson sat their quarterback and their running back and 4 receivers, and all of a sudden they're both in the playoff.
And
I got two arguments against it. No, go ahead. Well, I got 2 arguments against why I don't see them doing that. One, you end the regular season usually with a rival. Alabama's not going to let off the gas to beat Auburn, even if they got everything. You know, they know they're going into the playoffs. They're still going to drub Auburn. And 2, when you make to the SEC championship game, you're playing for a ring. Those kids aren't going to want to relax. That coach doesn't want it. The coach has about a $250,000 bonus, Jason, for winning the
money on the line for that game.
Yeah, and guess who else is going to have money on the line now? The players. So they're going to win. Or at least they're going to try to. I don't see anybody going, oh yeah, we can phone this one in and then rest for a week before, because we have the bye. Rest for another week, and I will fight anybody on this and say, oh, these kids get too tired to play 12 or 13, 15 games. No, come on. Watch these kids. They lift, they go to practice, they go pick up basketball. These kids are damn near indestructible. You know, that's I say kids, they're men, but they'll be ready to play. If you say it's a 15-week, 16-week, 17-week season, hell, that's what they want to do in the NFL. They can do it now. So I don't buy that argument. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're good. And if anything, like kids, if you're thinking from the player's perspective, all right, so now I get to work a little bit less, or not necessarily work a little bit less, but I get more reward. I get more times to play the actual game of football as opposed to, doing all the drills like we saw Julio Jones doing on Twitter today for the Titans. Like, as opposed to all that. But the logistics of this are going to be fascinating, though, because I can sit there. Like, my first thought was Nick Saban on a podium after going 13-0, getting a bye, and then now having to go play in Dallas at a neutral site against Texas, who just had a home game. And again, Sark's got them all fired up and rolling, and they've had a home game. And now I'm Saban 13-0, and I got to go to Dallas at Jerry World and play against Texas. Like all that stuff is just, it's fun to discuss.
Yeah, I'm against anything that gives us more to write about.
But no, you're right. Something interesting earlier, Roddy, about all the times that Georgia, think of all the times Georgia would have been included and the times they may have been able to make a run. If
the last 4 years they would have been.
It's wild.
I was just about to ask how many times in the last 4. Yeah. Oh God, Rick, that's what. Let's just say an 8-team, Jason. I don't mean to interrupt you, but not even a 12-team, an 8-team playoff. How many times has Mark Richt in it?
Rick just needed a 4 to get in, 3 or 4 times?
Right.
Hey, Don in 2.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just thinking in terms of Rick, I'm thinking 02, 05, 07, and 12. That's 4 off the top.
12 is the one I was thinking of, yeah.
And there could have been others. I've been told the most talented team in the Richt era was, I think, was it 11 that had all the injuries? 11 and 13 both had a ton of injuries.
Yeah, but 13 was just incredible how many guys got hurt.
Yeah. But
so you take into account it's amazing that the dynamic of college football could actually change with I wonder when it comes to coaches at some of these programs, when Saban came in and it's been Saban controlling everything. What does this do to a programs that now will have a bigger stake? I look at Auburn as an example. Will Auburn get into the playoff more? Getting into the playoff, is that going to be grounds for keeping a coach longer in a 12-team playoff than it otherwise would if they keep missing, the SEC championship or the 14 playoff or what it was before in the BCS system. So, I mean, is this going to be a beneficial thing for coaches long term now that you potentially have 12 teams getting into the playoff? I wonder how that dynamic changes, or potentially.
It depends who you ask, Jason. Are you asking the fans or are you asking his agents?
Well,
his agent's like, hey, honestly, playoffs. One of the best 12 coaches in the world. Come on.
I think
about it from the fans' perspective, though.
I think
you're right. It's great. It's a great question. I love it.
As much as it would even out, there will be teams that will get more opportunities to get in, but then also, I'm just sticking with your Auburn example because I was right beside them when they were doing this. In 13, where they have the prayer at Jordan Hare and the kick 6, well, that would be probably 1 or 2 extra teams that they might have had to play in the playoff that would prevent them from getting to the national championship game. And theoretically, you're not going to strike magic 4 times in a row, but it is Auburn, so maybe it would happen. But some of those wonky, crazy things that we love in college football, over time, Brent, you're a data guy. It's just going to be hard for the mean not to rise when given more opportunity.
And Roddy made the point earlier about who's going to still win it. Well, guess who's still going to win it? The teams with the most talent.
What's to recruit the best?
Your extra game, yes. The extra games now put more and more effort, giving more extra games, more and more emphasis on depth and the ability to withstand an injury or a bad day by somebody, that kind of thing. And those teams are likely, just like the NBA, where more often than not the best team wins because of the 7-game series throughout. And even the Major League Baseball too, for that matter. I think the NFL, the NFL is a little different because there's a lot more parity in the NFL, but still, yet even over the past, and Jason might be able to back me up with this, even over the past 5 or 6 years, outside of an Eli run or a couple of Eli runs, the wild card team is not running the table. For the most part, it's been the teams that have the bye in the week, the top 2 seeds in the conferences that have been getting to the Super Bowl. So those top teams are still going to be winning it, but there's a lot of excitement. If Cincinnati goes and beats Alabama, that's awesome. It's fun. It's entertaining. That's sports are entertaining, and that's what matters.
I'm with you 100% there when it comes to the, the likelihood is that the winners is for the rich. The Georgias, the Ohio States, the Clemsons, the Oklahomas, the Alabamas. They're still going to win. They're still going to be there. Yes, they may have to take an extra step to get there. But to me, that's just part of the culling process, because when you look at a team like Clemson coming out of a really weak conference, it's okay, maybe you have to go an extra group. But you were the one powerhouse in that conference, and you beat another team that was okay, but hey, maybe they get it too. So now think about how many conference commissioners complain when you have 2 SEC teams in the playoffs, when you have Georgia and Alabama. Everybody's livid. There's only 4 spots. You got 5 Power 5 teams. 2 of them are taken by the SEC. Now, you've got these teams that may feel like they're entitled to get there every year. Maybe have to take one extra step. But even for the teams that make the wild cards, the wild card teams, those fan bases are engaged. That fight for that wild card spot is huge. That fight to make the playoff game or the play huge. They're still engaged at the end of the season. Whereas if you're a Wake Forest and you've got 2 losses, but you've got 1 good win, and you're like, hey, we could win our division, or we won our division, but we got 2 bad losses. We still have a chance to maybe be selected by the committee as an at-large, considering the 2 teams we lost to, one's going to be ranked number 2, one's going to be ranked 5. Maybe we get in at number 12. So all of a sudden, Wake Forest is actually paying attention, and they're not thinking about basketball. So to me, yes, the Blue Bloods are going to win it. They may have an extra step, but you bring everybody else into it, and you don't have conference commissioners complaining. You don't have other fan bases complaining, and you get rid of that kind of, I don't call it an old boys club, but just that system where it feels like everything's preordained. Nothing's going to change. You're just seeing which plaque they're going to raise. There's only 4 or 5 plaques that are going to go up. So that's my take.
One thing that I think this does solve is fewer players sitting out in postseason because more teams will be involved and have a path to win a title. And that has been one of the massive problems for college football. It just so happens that
that's a good point. Good point.
That also coincides with name, image, and likeness to where all of a sudden, a player from Coastal Carolina on a national stage. Okay, there's a reason to play this game in that way. Also, there's a new way for those smaller programs to build a little bit. And so you were asking about coaches earlier, Jason. I think one thing that could happen is you have coaches that actually stay a bit longer at some of the smaller schools if they can go win a title there. Because if you have the crazy College World Series run that Coastal Carolina had to win it in baseball a few years ago, the first football team that finds a way to do that, legendary forever.
Right. Also, a bit of a tangent here. This is going to make we've been talking about the playoff. Having 12 teams in is going to make non-conference scheduling. I think you can get rid of your FCS. I mean, I think it's going to be bad for the FCS in a way.
That's
I think
a good point
teams can get
too.
rid of that. And that's money that the FCS will lose, but you can get rid of that game now. You can make the regular season more exciting when you don't have to worry about having more than one loss. You can have 2 losses, 2 good opponents, and still get in as one of the top 6 teams that were not a conference champion. I think that's going to make the big time college football scheduling more exciting during the regular season. So I think that's going to be a big benefit to the fan as well.
Would go back to the way Georgia was adding all these crazy teams, adding Clemson 5 or 6 times, it seems like, in the next 10 years. You see them adding major crossover opponents, major D1 schools, the rich, scheduling the rich instead of all those FCS opponents. It was theorized they're doing that because they know the playoff expansion was coming. And they're like, look, we can now put on we get some high quality teams where we're not just bringing in, a directional school or, Little Sisters of the Poor to play, pay them $1 million. Our fan bases hate it. And sometimes our home schedule sucks because, the teams we're playing aren't that good. And then we got the FCS teams on there. There's only there have been a couple of years in Georgia where if you're a owner, you own tickets for the full season, you're like, man, as a season ticket holder, this ain't much. So now all of a sudden, we got Oklahoma, we got Clemson, and there's one year it's absolutely brutal for Georgia. But hey, if you only lose 1 game, 2 games in that season, you can still make the playoffs. Absolutely, I think from the scheduling standpoint, Jason, that is a huge one there. But again, you're also taking away the complaints from some of these small schools. Say, look, we don't have a chance. You do now. Come on, Liberty. Come on, Coastal Carolina. You got it.
You mentioned the fan component. Think about it. Hey, I'm a fan, and I go to Georgia football games, and I love going to Georgia football games. Well, guess what you would have been able to do in this? I think you would have been able to do. You would have been 5th or 6th in terms of the rankings. You would have had another home game, at least in this proposal as it is now.
Yep.
And you get to go have a big time football game, a big time day at Sanford Stadium.
Point.
Go enjoy it. That's great.
A playoff game in your home stadium. Tell me that's not going to be sideways.
Oh, it'd be insane. Absolutely insane.
So would you rather be the 5th seed and get a home playoff game against likely a lesser opponent? Or would you rather be the 4th seed and get the bye?
Yeah. 4th seed, get the bye. Way too many chances that your starting quarterback gets destroyed or something. It's like, nope. Want to win the title. Home game would be great, but I'm all about going to Jerry's World and playing playing a Texas team that's all hyped up after I've been on 2 weeks of rest. I didn't have to play last Saturday. Well, look at the teams coming off a bye, how successful they are. So I'd rather have the bye personally. As a fan, I'm like,
I think
give me that home game.
I think those top 4 teams, they should have a home game as well. You shouldn't have to go play 3 neutral site games. That should be, hey, I'm a conference champ. I'm 12-0, 13-0, whatever I am. Give me a home game. Let my fans revel in that and enjoy that. I think get the money component from the other side and having those neutral site games and what it does there. But TV matters more than any of that stuff. So it's going to be great on TV anyway.
That's
I guess it's a matter of you're disrupting the whole bowl system. That's what the playoff did. I mean, they've been able to keep the bowl system alive as long as it has. Also, that these profits, quote, nonprofits, can hold a game once a year, make a ton of money at the expense of the schools and the players and the coaches, and call it a day and go home and do it all again next year. So it's been a racket for a long time, and it's kind of cool to see it coming to an end. I know that's definitely a new school way to look at it. I grew up loving to watch bowl games, but then you realize just kind of how stupid it is at the end of the day if you're not playing for a national title, then what is the point? And so that said, you're going to have to those big time bowls, the what college football has been known for, this is the middle ground. You have them do the neutral site games, keep those guys happy, keep the money coming in for them. The TV, ESPN, I think, owns a bunch of the lower level games for the TV revenue now. So it's wild that how the system looks like now. But you're going to see an even increased level of apathy to any of the bowls that exist outside of a 12-team playoff. But the 12-team playoff, as you mentioned, Roddy, the attention for so many other programs now that aren't Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame, and whoever else, I guess like a Michigan State or that have gotten in recently. I mean those teams that have Oklahoma, I think Ohio State, those teams that have gotten in recent years, it's been the same guys. But to add people to the mix, you're talking about just broadening the reach of a sport that I think has had some lethargy in a way. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just Clemson and Alabama have gotten so good. LSU had its crazy year, but it's been the same players year in, year out. And so to get a shot in the arm like this, even if it is for the first two rounds, it's only good for the sport.
And I think the most common drawback that people will say, people that are opponents of an expanded playoff, is that it waters down the regular season. The regular season doesn't matter. I liked it the way it was, years and years and years ago. What I'll tell you about that is there is no more watered down season in sports than college basketball because of the size of that tournament. And you mean to tell me that when North Carolina and Duke play that it doesn't get people's eyeballs and attention?
Right.
So as long as it's good teams and good football, I think people are going to watch it regardless. And just because Georgia and Florida may not have the exact same implications because each has more of an opportunity to come back, that game in Jacksonville is going to be huge anytime they play it.
No, you're right. I was thinking, I have a lot of friends, people that I've known growing up. They don't watch baseball until the playoffs. There's 162 games. They're like, if they miss a game, it's not a big deal. But these same folks are Falcons fans, and they don't miss a minute of the pregame show that's like 5 hours. They're watching every little section of it. When they phase out or when they stop watching, when 8. Okay, there's no chance here. And to be fair, I get that, and that's not going to change under the expanded playoff system. But to me, with a lot of people don't watch college basketball until the NCAAs, because they fill out their bracket, they're paying attention to it then. Or maybe towards the last few weeks where they're watching the conference tournaments, they're watching the big matchups towards the end of the season, to help them with their brackets. They're not paying attention until things matter, until things count. People don't pay attention. The idea that all of a sudden things aren't going to matter as much because you're watering down the season. There's not enough games to water down the season. You nailed it, Dane, when you said Georgia versus Florida. That's not going to be watered down. People want to beat the Gators. Georgia has 750 arch rivals. You got to beat South Carolina because you don't want to hear shit from the people over in Columbia. You got to beat Tennessee because if you don't, you'll never hear Rocky Top of them playing for all year long. You got to beat Auburn. If you don't beat Auburn, that's going to come back to haunt you on the recruiting trail. Plus, it's the Deep South oldest rivalry. I don't care if both winners are going to make it to the playoffs. They still want to beat the hell out of each other. There's just not enough games for this regular season to be watered down. So, to me, it's kind of the best of both worlds. You get to play the regular season. You improve your chance of either making the top 4, getting a bye, getting a home game, or at least getting into it. I mean, Georgia and Auburn have played spoiler for each other for years, where one team's doing really well, the other team's not. and now they're both out. So I think this is a chance where you get your cake and eat it too, because you get to have your great 4 games. And if you stumble once or twice along the way, maybe not twice, but at least once, you're not out completely. So I like it.
Brent, let me toss this idea out to you because Jason made me think of it. Because in scheduling, I do think we will see reduction or elimination of FBS versus, Division II or FCS or whatever on the schedule. Why not just make that part of the spring game rather than just playing yourself? It can be in whatever stadium, but yeah, could Georgia play Mercer in a spring game that they kind of half-ass out there? That'd be fine for everyone, right?
Yeah, amen.
Coaches don't want any part of that. The coaches don't want any part of that.
I'm not asking about what the coaches want. I'm telling you what fans might want.
Yeah, I love thinking of it from the fans' perspective. I'm sitting there thinking, all right, you mean to tell me I might have my guy get hurt? No. I can't control that environment. No. No part of that.
Yeah, 9 months to get them fixed.
But you could still get
high
hurt
school players
anyway.
do it.
In a regular G-Day game, you could still get hurt.
I mean, you can get hurt walking
Very
down the
true.
stairs at Tate. So, I mean,
What's his
you can
name?
put
Tommy
so much
Bush
bubble.
got hit by a car.
Yeah.
Richard LeCount too. You think about it, you had 2 guys that seem to get hit by cars.
You brought up a
Yeah.
I mean, and again, years like this past year where they would have been in the playoffs, you get your guys getting hit by cars. It sucks, but at least you're not out of the things. You lose. We have one quarterback opt out. You have another one that can't quite get it done. It looks like you're about to beat the crap out of Florida. And on one play, you get your quarterback messed up and your up and coming receiver. You know, so it's like, okay, that was a rough setback. You're beating Alabama. Nobody beats them, but you're taking it to them, until your quarterback gets banged up a little bit. So I'm like, this year when you lose the leader in your defensive backfield because he gets hit by 2 cars, I believe, that's a situation where, like, hey, we're still in the playoffs. And, guess what? We had this quarterback, he's played 4 games. They haven't been great teams, but he's pretty damn good. And George Pickens is back. Let's see how they play now. So I'm just saying it's anything where you get to stuff that feels like it's out of your control. It's not that you went to, like when Georgia went and played Ole Miss in Kirby's first year and was 31-0 at the half. Okay, that's a beatdown. When they played Auburn and got destroyed at Auburn, but then faced them in the SEC championship game and did the reverse. Those are my examples of one. There's no coming back from. The other one, you got a chance and you corrected your mistakes and had a hell of a year. So I'm just saying I like the idea of this. I don't want to say second chance, but a bigger group, a bigger pool. I think you're going to have a lot more engagement.
I'll tell you what I'm excited about is the kind of national verbal parsing between who was the 12th best team and the 13th best team. Or I guess once you remove the conference champions, maybe that comes down to like 7th or 8th best team, depending on how that flows. But like you're going to see so much subjective BS and lobbying. And I mean, we already see it now, but like I think it's harder the further down you go to see the difference in, a Wisconsin and an Arizona State.
Now, Dane, that was actually when I was talking about the teams that are complaining. I think you have a legitimate complaint if you're number 6, you're number 5, you're number 4. But that's why, to me, jumping out to 12 kills all that. Because if it was just 6 teams, the number 7 team and the number 6 might, hell, sometimes they might have beaten each other and one gets in and the other doesn't. But to me, we get out to 12, you're not going to get clicks on a story. Here are the 5 teams that we think should have been number 12. Nobody
but they'll be written. I don't care who gets clicks. I promise you they'll be written. No,
they will be written. And then when they don't get the clicks, luckily we're not click-based. We're subscription-based, so we don't have to write that garbage. But when they look at Chartbeat, which kind of runs journalism nowadays, they go, wow, that story fell flat. Don't ever do that again. So it'll happen this year, but it'll only happen, or whenever year they expand. But it won't happen again after that because the only people that care about that are number 13, number 14, number 15, number 16. Nobody else gives a damn. But when you write the story why this team should be hosting or this team should have got a bye, don't click on that.
Jason brought up a great name earlier. How quickly is Notre Dame a permanent member of the ACC?
Oh, yeah. I mean, But now that there's 12, there's no reason to. Like once there's 12, it really isn't a reason because Notre Dame can do its own schedule. It's got the prestige, and they'll always be ranked highly.
But would they not be? They wouldn't be qualified to get a spot in, right?
Can't
they wouldn't
get a
be.
buy.
Yeah, but they could be. That's true. They wouldn't be able to get an automatic spot. They would if they have a good year. If they have 1 to 2 losses, I guarantee you they're going to be in the top 6 remaining.
But I guess that cuts out like half the pool that they could potentially beat. I guess it's not half the pool. It's only whatever conference they would go to. But
Right.
I almost wondered if the way that was written, that's college football saying, "Hey, we need you to get in the conference."
It's
Get in
possible,
the
because it's not like before where it was conference champion, or what would it be in the old BCS or formula where it was like conference champion or Notre Dame, where it was like the Notre Dame exception. Now, it's very possible. Hey, go join a conference full time.
The other thing that this does is I think it probably prevents conference expansion or mass realignment, as we always have seen in off-season articles every year, because the system would be in place that teams wouldn't have to necessarily try to find a new conference to get into a playoff. Because I think we've all seen teams in our life. Appalachian State has had teams that would be kind of right there at the edge of this in this range. And I think that's what gets really interesting.
Yeah, I do wonder how much, when you do get to that 11, 12 spot, will they continue to screw the little guy? Like, will they push the little guy out just a little further? Before you could let a Boise or a Coastal or a BYU get up to that 6-7 mark because you didn't have to worry. But
you let them say they were a top 10 team.
Yeah, you're top 10. You're great. Central Florida. Yeah, sure.
You're this close. Come on.
Yeah, you can go to the Peach Bowl. But now, what do? Do they get pushed out a little bit further? All of a sudden, they can't crack the top 10, the top 12. I'll be interested to see how that plays out. Central Florida being the obvious kind of case study, given that they've now like Gus Malzahn's there and they've done well in recent years, and you would assume that they'll still be able to recruit, the leftovers, but still pretty good players in Florida that the big schools pass on.
I mentioned like Georgia Southern earlier, and I mean, they made a move 7-8 years ago to jump up to, FBS football in the group of 5.
Right.
And it was pretty controversial in Statesboro at the time because about half the fans wanted to stay and compete for championships in the FCS and in the playoffs. And then half of them wanted to come join the big boys. Well, now there's reason for them to have done that. Yeah. And I think that's pretty exciting that lower schools, if they can kind of maneuver their way in, there'll be more flexibility in those group of 5 conferences. And I do see some excitement there. I don't know what it does for the other independents as well, the Armies and the Navies. I mean, we've seen years where both of them have become top 20 teams. How, does an expanded season for them mean a whole lot? They tend to play in the first bowl game possible.
UCF is the one, though. UCF, like the spot that they are in right now is golden, I think. Because that school is humongous. Like, what do they have, 60,000 students?
Yeah.
Something like that. The alumni that they have, and when you do that, plus the NIL stuff, hey, 5-star QB, come to us.
Disney World.
I mean, who knows? Anyway, it's fun. It's fun to discuss. More is better.
I think we've probably reached our wrapping point here. So if anybody's got any final points, let it ride. Otherwise, we'll let our audience get back to their Thursday.
I was stealing Brent's topic right there. His last line. We should have ended it when he said "more is better." Done. That to me, that's my whole take on this thing. And again, I think when you worry about the kids who were sitting out, that kind of sours the fan base when you see a kid. And I get it. Trust me. If I'm Isaiah Wilson or, Andrew Thomas, and I'm a first-round draft pick, go to play in a meaningless bowl game, I'd probably sit out too. I'm going to go start training for the combine. I get it. But that soured a lot of fans' perceptions of the players. The NIL thing, there's some people it's just not going to sit well with. I'm all for it. A lot of people are not. Knowing that your team's out of the running, in the middle of October, That sours on the sport, and people think that the fan base will always be there. It does not. I mean, look at some of the major leagues. They have suffered through shedding fans left and right. If there's other stuff to do, you can lose great swaths of your fan base for the entire sport, not just your particular school. So to me, this is a shot in the arm for college football. It's what it needs, and I'm all for it.
I'll wrap with this question on YouTube because it made me laugh. Richard Mockmore says, I know that this is a SEC show, but how do you think the Iowa Hawkeyes football team will do? And to which I would tell you, Richard, in perpetuity, Iowa and South Carolina in the Outback Bowl. Enjoy that.
Love their fans. Same with South Carolina.
Yeah, I want to go to a game there. So
Dedicated.
Maybe Josh Brooks can schedule a home and home with Iowa. I'd be down for that. All right,
Wednesday,
guys.
December 30th every year.
Yeah, I like it. This was good. Thanks for hopping on and joining this. If you've been watching and you enjoy what we're doing, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. We like to do these reaction videos as news breaks in college football, especially as it pertains to UGA. Head over to UGAsports.com. We've got a great promo that you can join right now for $20.21. You will not get a deal like that hardly ever with UGAsports.com.
I've never done it before, so.
Oh, so yeah, or ever at all. It gives you access to the best community in UGA athletics, and that is the dog vent over at UGAsports.com. Also, the Vault, which is our hotbed for recruiting, which is hot and heavy right now after the recent visits to campus. For Brent Rollins, for Jason Butt, and Roddy Nabolsi, I am Dane Young. Thank you for watching, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll see you later.